Welcome to the Tales of Drawn Steel, where we use the TTRPG system Reflections created by Jim McClure to tell a tale of two warriors as they recall their lives lived as friends, or that friendship is tarnished and becomes to the conclusion where only one will walk away or neither will. Here we explore stories of two beings that have entwined their fates throughout a lifetime of tall tales and tribulations. Love, sacrifice, betrayal, peace, and war are all aspects of a life lived. In the end, though, for our two sides of the coin, there is only one fate. The time of drawn steel approaches, and along with it, a reflection upon finality. I am Doc, and today I'm joined by a fellow storyteller, JustJarn, to go on this journey together.
It was a tumultuous time when the advancements of the modern world came clashing with that of the traditions of an old world.
We stand upon frozen ground in the hills overlooking Mentor's home we both shared.
I remember when you were an individual that I admired, when we were close as friends as two individuals could be.
This feud started when we broke away from our training and went our own ways.
My name is Nakano Kazuhiko. I am a man looking to remove his past, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
My name is Rengi Oso. I am a hunter of men, and I cannot allow your actions to go unchallenged.
The snow falls heavily. The time for blood is soon to come. We both stand there, looking at each other, our eyes gauging, noting, detailing one another. These are the individuals, two spirits entwined in a long storied history that over the age and over the years has come to not only blossom but also to fail. You can hear the cries of the nearby wind as it bellows off of the mountains. This would be the final scene of this tumultuous period. This would be the final moment. And even though we stand in the shadow of our former master's house, one of us will not be walking away.
I am the arbiter of stories. What is a challenge you faced in the memory ahead? I will hold your response for judgment until this part of the tale is told.
There is a time long ago when you and I had been dear friends, children who for the most part grew up within this world that did not understand did not even dream, I should say, did not even grasp at the fact that the world was changing. This world would soon come crashing down, but for us in that period, the world still embraced us, and we understood the world as it was meant to be. At that point in our lives, we were young, we were foolish, but we had hope. It was the time where we were friends. I remember Lonely Toad Village. It was a village located in the western portion of the province, and for the most part, most individuals tend to overlook it. Yes, our village was small, rustic, and easily overlooked. But for the most part, the village had its own way of doing things. It had its own charm. For those that lived there, it was a kind village. It was a kind existence. The paddy fields would be filled with rice during the harvest seasons, and during the spring we would be setting up, getting ready for that. We would await those long, hot summers, and for the most part, it was the bitter winters in which we would huddle together and tell stories. I loved those moments. I remember as a child, the first time I met you. I recall that I actually hadn't, well, this is really embarrassing and I do apologize for saying so. I had fallen out of that tree and I had broken my arm. I was trying to see and test myself to see if I could actually make it to the top of that tree. And when I fell and I cried out, no one came to my aid. I knew that if my father or my brothers would learn of this, they would make fun of me. I would be embarrassed to death. But thankfully, you happened to be just out there, and you happened to witness it.
Oh, Nakano, your ability to dream often outwove at least your ability to climb. But you were always pressing to try to make the village feel bigger in our own ways through story or reaching the top of the tree. But if you remember, I did get in a bit of trouble trying to use my mother's cloth to wrap your arm up. It didn't matter to me. I knew that the possibilities were there of trouble and repercussions. Maybe a whooping for using such a beautiful piece of material, but I don't know. I saw someone in need. Didn't know they'd become a friend. Well, I tried to help. Let's not overdo how terrible I wrapped your arm. I probably did more damage to begin with than you'd already done to yourself.
It seems interesting how the years just pass so quickly. Almost like sitting upon a shoreline and just watching the waters move along. It's just year after year, and looking back, those moments make me smile. I remember you telling me that your mother was going to be so upset, but that cloth, you had been so kind in that moment, and you bestowed it upon me, and honestly, you knew you were going to get in trouble. And I remember that I told you, I said, don't, just leave it at be. I'll recover on my own. I don't want you to get into trouble. Again, silly things that kids say. And yet, oh gosh, what was it that you said?
Well, I said that holding out a kind hand and helping those in need always will outshadow whatever comes next.
I just always felt that you lived by that, and honestly, that guided me more than anything else throughout my life.
I tried for a long time to hang on to that. Yes, I know that in our childhood I feel like that's how we always ended up telling stories from that point. We always wanted the hero to be there to save the day and to make the moment in the world bigger and more beautiful and have a happy ending. The intention was always more important than the outcome.
And yet, I wonder if that happy ending was ever going to be possible. Looking back at this moment, at this past that we shared, it's so interesting that the simple fact that none of us had any idea of the changes that would come. And again, the river of time continues to move on. I'll be honest with you. I wish I could be back in those times. I often think about them in my worst of moments.
As do I. You know, it's funny, I have thought back to you and our friendship in a lot of moments, also my worst, or in those that I had to make a decision that could change the fate of someone else's, or cut their fate short in my time. You remember, you remember what I asked you to do when I put it on you back even when we were kids to keep me from becoming something else?
As the years begin to gather and the dust of time, kind of like the snow that falls around us in this moment, begins to accumulate, it becomes really hard to recall the little details that makes our memories our own. I'm sorry, Rengi Oso. With the multitude of things that we've gone through, with everything that has happened between you and I can't recall in detail what was said. And yet,
Well,
I feel that time, that beautiful time that we had as children, somehow is now diminished. And even though I tend to look back at those times at happier moments, I know that those times are gone. Those times we were friends.
well, I unfortunately have to agree. I put a lot back on you back in those days when we would watch that snowfall. We pretended like the sands would stop for us as we drew those worlds in our minds together. I asked you to be my kindness and to remind me always to lead with that kind intention and let it be my guide. But you're right. That was in the time that we were friends.
Storyteller John, you were successful in your endeavor. You have been granted 3 boon. Storyteller Doc, you were lost in your pursuit, but your hatred has grown by 3 marks. Storytellers, again, what is a challenge you faced in the memory ahead? I will hold your response for judgment until this part of the tale is told.
Do you remember, Nakano, the time, gosh, how many years was it? I can't tell, after we first met and you fell from that tree and were well healed, and the spring came, really strong and early that year. The town was abuzz. Even such a small town, there was lots of motion, to the waterway, to the hills, the rice fields. Everyone was abuzz, yet we were allowed to sit on a beautiful spring morning with our mentor, Konso. He was teaching us, well, he was teaching us all the things we needed to know first, from philosophies to ways of the world that he could present from such a small town. But he had allowed us to move on to ways of the sword just 2 days before. So we were still fresh, but excited. And the way that the wind picked up that day, it seemed to move us into a new grace we didn't know we had. That kind of faded, that joy, that peace. It didn't last, even for that whole day or that whole training. And it became a time that you crossed the line. We were there as the budding winds blew the grass around us in the circle he had laid out. Well, he made us lay out, smash down and till and pat so we would have surface to scurry about on and pretend like we knew what we were doing and listening to his lessons like we were absorbing them instantly and knew how to keep ourselves safe, swinging swords without causing much damage, but there was a preciseness to you compared to the wildness that, I don't know, I felt as soon as those even makeshift wooden weapons were put in our hands. We spoke before of the admiration of me and my arrival and my approach, but do you remember how you used to move back in those days, even before we were trained? The talent that you had, even from the start.
I scoff, thinking at the idea of our old sensei. Hanzo sensei was as hard and as rigid as they come. I remember that time. I remember that there was rumors and spreading about the village. There was a coalition, the New Winds Party, that had begun to attract young samurai, to bring them out from the rustic villages to the promises of modernization, of new ideas. I remember that old fart didn't even desire to sit down and listen to any of the ideas that I brought to him. I told him about it. Long nights I remember that I sat there yelling back and forth with him. He struck me from time to time. You were there as well.
I was. I feel that. I do remember the harshness. I don't know. Perhaps, as you said before, the dust and snows of time, they cloud us. Perhaps I have found myself, as of late, only trying to see the positives and maybe even lie to myself. I remember the lessons. I do remember the harshness of them, but I remember feeling like I deserved the consequence of failure. I felt that I failed Hanzo more than you did, even though you were the one that stood up to him most and had your machinations. Even though you were the one that lashed out at him. Do you remember that day? It was more than just lashing out. You lashed out with so much anger and luckily it was just a training sword.
Oh, Rengi Oso, that dust and snow does settle very deeply amongst both of us. Although I do recall that it wasn't exactly just this little fight between myself and Hanzo Sensei. I didn't get along with him. But I recall that I had asked you. It was just our day that we would actually become warriors. We would be recognized. And I said to you, come with me. Come with me to the New Winds Party. We would leave this town behind. We will set all of this behind us and we would walk together into the future. And you chose, well, what was your choice? Because you're right. When Hanzo Sensei learned of what I was asking you, of what I was planning, because someone said it to him, well, words only last as long as a mindful and patient hand wields the weapon. And you are right. I did strike Hanzo Sensei. I don't cherish the fact. I don't cherish that moment. But I was asking you to come with me. I was asking you to head into a new future. And what did you say, Rengi Oso? Let's see if that dust and snow can be removed just a bit. Let the thaw come in. Tell me. You looked at me. I looked deeply into your eyes, and what did you say?
I told you that you had lost your way. I told you that you had made a mistake. I told you that your anger was clouding everything you were attempting to do, and that you were betraying not just Hanzo-sensei, but the village, wanting to go to this new world of thoughts. And yes, I know I did not follow you until... Well, I guess you wouldn't know. I followed you because Sensei asked me to. He turned from me in that moment and just pointed me away. So when I guess that is the first command I didn't follow. Because I let you go. And I also walked away from Sensei being... I don't know, I guess I thought it was a failure in him as well. And in that moment where you chose something else, I also chose the path that was different from you both.
I have come to regret many moments in my life. That moment, though, I lay all the blame on you, Rengi Oso, because of your cowardice. And I will never, ever forgive you for that. In that time, you crossed the line.
Well, whether your outrage is rightly placed, you went back on what we said we would be, even without our sensei. You lashed out, and kindness was nowhere to be found, not for me or for him. And it was a time that you crossed the line.
Storyteller Doc, you were successful in your endeavor. You have been granted 4 boon. Storyteller John, you were lost in your pursuit, but your hatred has grown by 4 marks. Storytellers, again, what is a challenge you faced in the memory ahead? I will hold you responsible for judgment until this part of the tale is told.
It was summer. It was one of the hottest summers I remember that we had ever suffered. The air felt thick and clung to you. Everything had a peculiar scent. It was horrible. And yet what made it even worse is that war had begun to ravage our lands. It was a time that I don't want to recall often, but it was one that began to forge us further upon the path that we would become. It was the eve of the Battle of the Sundering Path. The modern forces of the New Winds Party had begun to gather support from the local governments, those who strived to keep the traditions and their old ways, face down this new opponent, and with them they brought the wonders of technology. It was here, in the time that you failed me. My hands shake, Rengi Oso. You can hear it as I'm holding onto this hilt, feeling it. The clattering of the sword, is only demonstrated by the fact that my hand cannot wield it properly. My memories begin to flood, and I recall, well, the Battle of Sundering Path. It was going to be our defining moment. It was going to be the moment that would change the fate of our world. I don't know. My apologies. At times I still hear the sounds of the cannon fire and the guns. The clamor of thunder that does not seem to fade with time, and yet it just provokes images of death and mayhem. Before the battle started, I remember you were there. I had heard reports an individual such as yourself was there. I didn't think you were there for me. I didn't think you were there for anybody else. I didn't even understand why you were there. Why were you there, Rengi Oso? Why would you go to that? Years had passed since last we spoke during our time with Master Hanzo Sensei, when we left on not amicable terms. Why were you there?
I was there because I was asked to be. Because I was hired to be. I'm not sure what you truly see them as, if you think that to this day that they were still this great becoming of our land and our world, or if there is that touch of plight upon your memory. But people in command of those battles, people sent there with their machines and their drums of war that hammered the land, this wonder of technology, as you put it. They didn't even give a name. They just put out who the bounty was for those that seemed to be in charge, or that could weaken the stance of the battle to come. And my bow arm had become stronger than my sword arm, so it was only natural that I be there to take out and weaken the tide against, well, I guess in a way, the old ways, if you want to put it that way.
I don't even know what to say. You were there as a mercenary, being paid? Rengi Oso, I would have never even considered that thought, that this would have become you. In all honesty, I don't even know what to think of it anymore. Finally, I'm starting to see something of that moment that I never realized. And I don't know what I should do.
And your reason for being there was so much better.
I was there for what I believed in.
What was that? Nakano, what
What
did you believe in that brought you there?
What was that? What? That we had to change. That the world had to change. This was our moment. I don't understand why no one else saw this within our village. I don't understand why you never saw this. At this point, the world was at the precipice of change. We could not continue in the old ways.
Because we were forced away from the old ways?
And I'll be damned. Rengi Oso, tradition was not meant for us. Tradition had its failings. We overlooked individuals, we looked over the world itself, and we stuck to the old ways as we had for hundreds of years. This new possibility came knocking. It was upon our door. I don't even understand how you could have
Of course you couldn't
sold
understand.
yourself.
You opened your door while it
To those who
smashed
would
down
see
on
the
the doors of
world.
others, the people that we were supposed to stand by. Yes, I was hired to be there. It's the only way I could get there. To stand where I wanted to stand. I understand that tradition needed to change and that the traditions of the old don't always match with the new. We could have taken the traditions and changed them ourselves in our way, not theirs.
You would have been stuck in the same world, Rengi Oso. You had no desire to change anything. For you, complacency was life. You were just going to be part of that order no matter what. I'm ashamed that I hadn't seen the individual that you were as a child now become this man. You had once inspired me, and yet at that moment, at the Battle of Sundering Path, I realized you weren't that man or that boy anymore. You were a different man. And what did you do at the Battle of Sundering Path? For the most part, I understood that most of the traditionalists were either gunned down or shot, sent howling away, screaming.
I found myself also shunned by traditions. I did what I had to do. I snuck behind lines. I planned trajectories of my arrows from unconventional places. I came from darkness and struck out people on the other side, on your side, unseen. And so, when it was all said and done, those that left wanted nothing to do with me either. I was paid what I was owed, and that was that. Still walked the road on my own, bearing my shame from both sides, as it were. But I still felt that Oh, no.
I am so...
Speak of yourself and my shame.
All I was going to say, Rengi Oso, I am happy that our paths did not cross during that battle. If I would have seen you, well, I don't think we would be standing here this day as we are.
I did
at
see
this
you,
moment.
Nakano.
And perhaps that would have been
Saw
for
you
the
once.
worse. Well, I didn't
yet
see
you still stand.
And it was in the time that you failed me.
I'm not sure if it's because I don't know. I told you before that there's moments that I remember. I don't know. I don't even want to call it a promise anymore, but a pact that we made on how we would lead ourselves. I saw you in the heat of battle, and the memory flashed, and suddenly I wasn't drawing down on you anymore, but I can think of it nothing else as still a time that you failed me.
Storytellers, you were lost in your pursuit, but your hatred has grown by one mark. Storytellers, again, what is a challenge you faced in the memory ahead? I will hold your response for judgment until this part of the tale is told.
It was, if you recall the time, I don't know if I would call it peace, but the fall brought a certain quality of calm to the land. There was great change, and many of our ways became something different, something aggressive. There was much, how do I say it? It was the fishing village near the coast, much to the north from where we grew up. What was it called? Sanso Village, if I remember correctly. And there was a gathering there, a feast in the fall, good harvest, and people celebrating, trying to bring people together. There were many of the folk of this new way bringing in, gosh, I don't even know what the contraptions were called, but going as far as even trying to teach the fishermen new ways to approach their catch. I was surprised to see you there as well. I don't know why you came, or I was honestly on my way even further north for reasons of my own when we stopped in this small place. So quaint and quiet. The calm on the water was almost hard to believe, almost like a dream, where instead of waves, it was placid and blue, the sun shining and gleaming off it, almost illuminating this small place, a small part of home. Yet I do remember it as the time we strived for peace. Tell me, Nakano, do you remember the feast and why you were so excited about it? I mean, I'm quite certain that when you realized I was there, your demeanor changed for a moment, but you didn't hold that change. There was something about you that just seemed to match the light coming off everything. Reflection from the water upon you as you stood there. You seemed almost like everything had gone right for a time. Is that the case, or were you just posturing for the festivities?
Sanso Village. That brings back so many memories. I mean, you must recall that was the time period where the government was changing and our world was adopting to the new ways. Well, I don't want to say it as I'm going to be embarrassing myself and looking a little bit smug about it. But I guess in these final moments we can enjoy that. I relished the fact that I had been actually promoted as an officer into the new government. If you recall, my attire had reflected that. I actually enjoyed the fact that I was part of something that inevitably was changing the world. Sanso Village just happened to be along the way. I was making my way back along the coast to the capital city. Although, you did surprise me. I'm going to say that, Rengi Oso-san, you did surprise me. I had not expected to see you there. If you recall, actually, I had actually asked you in regards to your mother. Had you seen her lately?
I had brought her some, well, I don't really pretend to act like I remember what all these materials were called, but well, you knew how she was with combining things and making decorations for the homes or clothings for the family in her, I guess we would call it fashion. I'd found some from a local trader after well, let's just say a proper bounty. And I had brought them home to her.
Ah,
Unfortunately, unfortunately, someone had spread rumors of my time in the change, as it were, and my approach to professions.
yes, ever the consummate bounty, the mercenary. I wish you would have stayed with me. I wish you would have come with me, Rengi Oso. Life would have been far much more easier for you after everything, but I had actually paid a visit to Lady Hana. I felt that the world had begun to change and our village stuck to its old ways. I'm pretty sure that you would have recalled having seen the deplorable state that the village had fallen under. For the most part, the wars had not been kind to our people, not our village, and as such, I went there. I held your mother in deep respect, and sadly, as the years passed and she got older, I wanted to make sure that I could do whatever I could in order to make certain that she was comfortable within her life. Oh yes, Renji Oso. Even in those moments, I thought about you, and I thought about those close to you.
And how you could make lives better for them, I imagine.
Well, I did bring Lady Hana many gifts. She was able to take care of herself, and those servants didn't come off of your bounties. Those were paid hands, and I made certain that they were paid.
Well, it makes all the more sense why she accepted the gifts, but not not the help I attempted to offer. I must say, I was quite surprised at the willingness of change, but at the same time, the state of the village, as you said, was not kind to those that remained from many respects. While I'm sure we vastly differ on our opinion of why that's the case, I must admit that it is the truth. And your support of my mother did allow her to at least survive.
I am glad for that, in all sincerity. But you are right, sadly, in the course of history, whenever innovation in this industry come along, many things get upturned, many traditions, many ways of lives. And I never understood, and perhaps I should admit that I never had the foresight to realize how it would change the world, our world in particular. And so, when I saw you at Sanso Village, I held no grudge. I just realized that we have taken two separate paths. And for the most part, that is going to be our lives.
Well, you continue to speak the truth, although I'm not sure I will. Well, maybe that's the closest I'll ever get to you admitting that the wounds so well healed or cared for by these new ways and these new people were also inflicted by them. So hey, maybe change requires some pain. I suppose that it always does, but well, if we can agree that the carer of the wound was also its creator, then Not sure that our path will agree on much.
I will say that Sanso Village was a moment that I would reflect upon within our lives, within the paths that we took. I can't say with certainty that I could forgive everything that had happened and transpired between us. I don't believe you would have forgiven it either. And yet, something about it felt strange. I don't know. As I look back upon it now, I felt that perhaps Sanso Village was just the calm before the eventual storm. At this point, I don't know what else to say in regards to all of it. I'm just hoping that, well, perhaps it's those little moments that we need to cherish more so than anything else in our lives. But nevertheless, our path was selected, our destinies foretold, and such etched into the forge. And so there was not much left to do. But at least for a small time, we strived for peace.
That we did. I can hardly remember many more times than that we took the time to at least speak with respect and shared in the festivities of festivals and revelry. While it could not last, as you said, and maybe never will, it was at least the time we did strive for peace.
Storyteller Doc, you were successful in your endeavor. You have been granted 3 boon. Storyteller Jarn, you were lost in your pursuit, but your hatred has grown by 3 marks. Storytellers, once more, what is a challenge you face in this final act of your story together? I will hold your response for judgment until you are ready for the ending.
It's a bitter winter. The snow has been coming down hard. At this point, the government has been pushing ever so much more to gain more control of the regions, the outlying regions. It's almost hilarious. Ironic that we would be standing here within the village of our childhood. The years have not been kind. Most of the individuals that we knew as being strong and resilient in our youth has grown frail and passed away. It's almost a shame to say that even Lady Hana has continued upon her next life. I'm almost apologetic to that fact, but it doesn't change the fact that we are here. As the snow continues to fall, me and my subordinates find ourselves surrounded now by a group of mercenaries. The last stand, those struggling to keep the traditional ways from falling before the might of technology. As we look upon the ground, you would see the rails that are being built, the train, the monstrous engine that would be pushed through this region in order to connect all the other regions. It would rip right through our village, and yet here, in the heart of it all, is where we stand. Behind me, the land has been ripped, resources has been spent, and the rail has been put down to the ground. The black bellowing smoke of the engine off in the distance hails to the fact that it's moving forward, progressing as it should. Behind this group of mercenaries lies the old world. Forests that still hold enchantment and villages that still hold to an ideology, a way of living that is now tired and old. And who should I find in the midst of all of this? This is the time it came to blood. I have nothing but sheer disdain as I look, and I see you standing there amongst these pitiful mercenaries. I shout out, Rengi Oso, come! What do you intend to do here? You cannot stop what is happening to this nation. You cannot stop the progress that is being made.
Renji would kind of hold the hand out to everyone else that kind of gets a little bit antsy by the sudden increase and step forward. Oh. Nakano, you always misjudge why people stand where they stand. I don't even stand here with hope that I can stop it. I know that even if I was successful with my band here today, someone else would come in and tear the heart out of my home and replace it with something new, and I suppose from your point of view, better. You have no respect. Not just for the old ways. They could be damned. They needed to change. That's not what this is about. I stand here to remind you that there was a better way. And you fell for something easier. Something worse.
First off, you dishonorable cur. You call me Nakano-sama. You are nothing. And on top of that, you're talking about something better, another way. Just a few days ago, my men were attacked. There's no other group within this region. Tell me, was that you, Rengi Oso?
Oh, I. The cur. You throw words. You command me to call you by names when you are not but demon. And I am here to root you out, just as my men and I did before. Root out your taint, yes.
I stand here and I can only feel this tension in my chest growing. My heart is pounding. I can feel the blood rushing through, and at this moment, I just want to grab my sword and cut down Rengi Oso where he stands. Those men that you've killed, you did so mercilessly. They died in an attack that came in the cover of night like cowards. I knew it then, I know it now. You're nothing but a coward, Rengi Oso. Hanzo-sensei always held you in high esteem. I knew that old man was blind, and I understood it. I will not move from here. I will give you the one option at this moment. Stand down, have your men surrender, and we might show you clemency.
Those men, as you call them, took from the graves of my people. Took shawl and ribbon from my mother's grave, a mother you have sworn many times to respect. And yet your men hold for parting gifts still. And you stand here giving me a way out? There is only one way. Well, I suppose you're right. Maybe there are more than one. You fall, or I fall. I know it may not make a difference, but I am willing to stand here and die for what I know to be right. So make your choice, old friend.
I turn towards one of my subordinates, calling out their name. Hametsu. Is this true? Were the gifts laden upon this man's mother's grave removed? I don't want your trifling answers at this moment. Whatever happens after this, you make certain that she is revered. Rengi Oso, I will never forgive those individuals, those men, for what they've done. But at this point, it is too late. I cannot allow you to continue forward. And it doesn't seem like you are going to back down. For the last time, we shall cross our paths once again. And our memories and our history be damned, whatever steps we take forward. Let it be in blood and alone. The time it came to blood.
So be it. He will turn to his men. If I fall, you have no other course to be here. They let you take what is you are owed, then take it, or walk away entirely. This fight ends with mine and my blood alone. So as always, you are right. It is time it came to blood.
Storytellers, you both were successful in your endeavor. Storyteller John, you have been granted 4 boon. Storyteller Doc, you have been granted 2 boon. Storyteller Doc, you stand with 9 boon and 4 hatred. Storyteller John, you stand with 7 boon and 8 hatred. Storyteller John, will you approach this conflict with hatred in your heart, or have you found peace?
If you did not bring up Lady Hana, I would have gone hatred.
Storyteller Doc, will you approach this conflict with hatred in your heart, or have you found peace?
Yeah, I felt it was very much that Renji's in a place where he knows that there's the outcome, like, doesn't truly matter. So it's time for an ending, basically.
Let the roll of your boons decide your fates.
All right, I ended up rolling 6, 5, 4, 2, 2, 1, 3.
And I rolled 6, 6, 6, 1, 1, 3, 5, 4, 5. So with that, as they step forward, Renji almost kind of lets things go and just approaches it as the battle needs to be. And as they come forward, the kind of wildness helps as he just lets the blade go and finds a strike just off center, but close enough to hit home and be the final blow.